Warning, was your website professionally designed? Welcome, I am Non, and you are watching the fourth episode of Attention Thievery 101 free content, how to turn visitors into customers. And today, since I've already talked to you quite a lot about the foundational principles of effective web design, I'm going to change direction slightly and I'm going to show you how these principles actually apply by picking some random examples of websites that have been selected as the best of the best, the cream of the crop of web design, by web designers themselves. And I'm going to show you just how poorly these principles are put into practice. Now, this isn't an attack on web designers. I'm a web designer myself. I've worked with web designers. I've worked for web designers. I have no problem with web designers. What I want you to understand, however, is that even a website which you might regard as being an exceptional website is probably tricking you with its guiles. It's using its pretty face to get you to think that it's an effective website when in fact it's just a pretty website. And a pretty website does not necessarily make sales. In fact, you'll find that websites that look like a bit of an eyesore often are engaging prospects by orienting them correctly, giving them desirability, and presenting offers which they want to take the website up on, whereas websites which look really good are not doing those things. Speaking of which, you remember Frodo, don't you? Of course you do. He stands for First Reaction, Orientation, Desirability, and Offers. And this is the checklist which I'll be using to fly through all the websites which I've got lined up here. And these principles are embodied in Frodo. Of course, not forgetting Odo, which is the core of the checklist, the elements themselves on the web page which orient your user, present desirability, and offer the things that he wants to do. Those elements need to get attention using contrast and eye path, either being big and bright and bold or being in the correct place on the page, or both. So, let's see how well a random sampling of top-class websites chosen by designers as examples of the best do with old Frodo. So I'm going to have a look at a random selection of designs. These are just the first designs that come up on a site called SiteInspire. This is a design gallery. It's a site which web designers can submit designs to as examples of the best web designs out there. And this gallery was voted the top in the world by a famous web design blog called Six Revisions. It's the one that got the most votes from the most designers as the best web design gallery out there. And I'm going to show you corporate style websites. There's no point obviously showing you magazine style websites or blogs or portfolios if you are in fact a small business and have a corporate website yourself. And I'm going to skip the very first one, which is Electronic Arts, because Electronic Arts, EA Games, are a huge company, not a small business, which I hope you are. So again, I want to compare apples to apples. So the first one we've got here is Charles Campbell, Bespoke Tailoring. Now, I didn't actually know this, which is probably a little bit embarrassing for me as a writer, but I'm prepared to admit my weaknesses. I did not know that bespoke means custom made. And I wonder how many of Charles Campbell's prospects know that. My first suggestion to Charles Campbell would be that potentially custom-made tailoring might be a better name. However, that's not really the issue at hand. The issue at hand, obviously, here is the site looks great except for the fact that there's no copy whatsoever. So orientation elements are marginally there, but in terms of any kind of desirability, there's none whatsoever because there's no reason being given to click on anything. And in terms of offers, again, there's nothing whatsoever because, well, there are no offers. There's the navigation at the top, and that's it. I won't go into too much detail. What I will do is I'll say that if you click, for example, on one of the links, it shows you outstanding pictures, beautiful pictures, but the copy itself is incredibly small on the right-hand side, which is on the wrong side of the page. If you consider that people read from left to right, they start on the left-hand side of the page. And although it's not terrible copy, it's not particularly engaging. It doesn't really establish a relationship as one person to another. And again, there are no offers presented afterwards. In fact, it's hard to know how anyone is supposed to become a customer of Charles Campbell using his website. In fact, one wonders what the point of his website is whatsoever. Alright, the next up is 37 East, tailor-made safaris to East Africa, which is quite different from tailor-made clothes to tailor-made safaris. Here at least we do have some copy on the homepage. 37 East offers tailor-made safaris to East Africa for travelers who place a high value on adventures and exclusivity, etc., etc. And there are offers. The calls to action, find out more here. Oops. find out more, find out more. They are not huge, and the site in general does overemphasize images, I think, to the detriment of the copy. But people definitely are looking for these sorts of experiences that the images portray when they're looking at a Safari. So there's certainly nothing wrong with having a focus on images here. I just think the focus might be a little too heavy, because research shows that reversed out copy, which is copy where you've got like white on black, for example, here it's kind of white on a brown, that does very poorly in terms of readership compared to what we would consider normal copy or book copy, which is obviously black and white. It gets about half the readership, and having your copy superimposed over images, again, about halves at least the readership. So here you're going to be potentially getting only 25% of the readers that you could be reading your copy. The other issue is that we've got 3 boxes, and I might have mentioned this before in a previous episode, but having 3 boxes of copy next to each other is like having 3 people talking at once. We've become quite used to it on the web, but it's still not a best practice. Having a single block of copy where you can read from top to bottom instead of having to jump from one to the other and not knowing where to start necessarily is definitely a better idea. Finally, the other thing that really jumps out at me is that although we do have good calls to action up here, they're on the wrong side, on the wrong level of the screen. They're up the top instead of down near the bottom after you've read the copy, and there's nothing to actually get us into them because there's no headline. The only headlines there are huge 37 East, Exceptional Africa, Unexplored Africa, neither of which really says much at all to the currently unengaged prospect. And where the headline should be is over here, where it starts the body copy, and there's nothing. Okay, let's move on. Going through these nice and quickly just to give you an idea. Okay, this is all in like Swedish or no, Norwegian, so I'm going to skip this one because I don't think I can offer a sensible critique of a site that I can't read. Cascade Brewery. Here we've got some interesting things. First of all, the first reaction is obviously really good. The site, I really like the style of this site. It's the sort of style that I would go for. I really can't complain there. However, brew by feel, user sliders and switches to brew your own website. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing here. Like, it tells me what to do, but I literally do not understand what's going to happen when I change these, when I move these sliders. So, for example, we've got products here, and you can move it back and forwards, but what does that mean? View our range of beers. This is creative navigation gone mad. It's the sort of thing that designers love to show off as a proof of concept, but then they should not ever actually turn it into a production website. It's useless. It is more than useless. I do not know how to find anything without having to go through some trial and error, moving little sliders around and hoping for the best. So we've got a huge problem with the navigation, and we've also got a huge problem in that there's nothing but pictures, and pictures don't tell us anything, sans copy. Pictures are good for getting attention, and they're good for demonstrating things in the copy, and they're good for asking questions, but none of these are being done here. The only thing that's being done is I'm given lots of things I can click on, and I don't know where they're going to take me. So not only has there been no engagement with the reader through a headline and through some kind of interesting copy, but in addition to that, we've also got a lot of links that I don't know what's going to happen when I click on them. So overall, there are essentially no orientation elements, there are no desirability elements, and there are no offers. So we've got a similar problem that we had on Charles Campbell's site. Spring Studios. I don't know what Spring Studios do, and looking at their site, I still don't know what they do. I see that they make iPad apps, so at least I assume they do, because it says the Vogue iPad app on the right over here. But apart from that, there's no tagline to tell me where I am, so orientation is very, very low to begin with. And although there are things like studios, lighting, video, capture, set builds, suites, and so on the navigation, I don't actually know where that's going to take me. Now, I'm obviously not an Ideal Prospect. Ideal Prospect might have a much better idea of what Spring Studios does, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on it. We also have issues with, for example, the first headline that I see is the Vogue iPad app. So okay, good, we've got headlines, that's nice, that's a good start, but Designed and built by Spring with creative director Robin Derrick tells me nothing of interest to me as a prospect. That's really just bragging on the part of Spring. And unfortunately, in real life, bragging is usually discouraged because it turns people off, but for some reason on the internet people don't think the same thing happens. Download now, so we do have an offer, but it's not very clear. It doesn't change color when we move our mouse over it. There's no contrast whatsoever. It just looks like normal text, so it's not likely to get clicked. Plastic Lemons, that at least has a little bit of curiosity factor, but there's no copy underneath to explain it. And the copy, in fact, is all over the place with a really bizarre, hard to follow grid layout, and again, no real calls to action. If the calls to action are there, they are being concealed by not being made to look different. So overall, not terribly good. First reaction is that the site actually looks a little bit cluttered and unpleasant to me. Orientation, very, very poor. Desirability, very, very poor. And offers, very, very poor. Sprint more. Okay, here's a site where I can't really complain. I love this style of color and so on. You'll probably understand that when you look at my own site. There's a similar kind of thing going on with the red and the grey and the black. However, having said that, the first reaction being good, what do we get when we get to orientation? Really nothing. Print more. Okay, so it's probably something to do with printing. Questions, call us. Well, I'm not going to call you just to find out what you do. That's just silly. And although we've got a slider here, carousels are actually a really good idea in many circumstances, but here what we've got is a very fast moving carousel. I barely have time to read even the minimal amount of text that they've got here before I have to see another one. And I'm afraid I'm going to miss something because, you know, I click on learn more for CD sleeves, but then what about the other things that I might be missing? And again, these offers are very, very, well, heck, they practically disappear when you mouse over them, but they haven't got a significant amount of contrast to begin with, and there's no desirability to speak of because A, I still don't know exactly what these people do. I see that they do CD sleeves. Okay, that's great. Do they create the sleeves themselves? Do I have to bring my own sleeves? I'm not sure. DVD covers, cool. So they're showing me what they do. That's good, but they aren't actually engaging me with a headline. They aren't giving me any kind of copy. And once again, further down below, you've got this issue with having multiple columns of copy in a row. So first reaction is good. Orientation is poor because the first thing that I actually look for is copy. Once I realize that I'm being oriented with images, the orientation is average, maybe. Desirability is still pretty low, even though the images again are demonstrating, so there's something to be said there, but the desirability isn't very high because of the lack of headlines and copy. And the offers are fairly poor. They're not terrible because learn more is something I probably do want to do, but they're not great either. First of all, their contrast is low, and second of all, I haven't been given much to go on in terms of clicking them. The last one I want to look at is CityDog, friend or foe. First reaction is I like the style of this site as well. It's very typographical, which is something I'm into. And I'm sure that non-designy folk would say more or less the same thing. The site looks really good. There is, again, sadly, nothing to orient me on the site. I can see that it's something to do with dogs, obviously, and it's something to do with city dogs. The map in the background makes that clear, as well as the title. But here we've got another carousel. What is the carousel achieving? I've got no idea. It doesn't seem to show me anything of useful because I don't understand what's being written on it. Litter or lunch? I mean, what does it mean? Boot or bone? It's cute, but I have literally no idea what it means, so I'm not getting any value whatsoever out of it. All it is an interesting little rotating thing. A city dog knows the difference. Okay, here's a headline. Not conveying any value. Not really getting me interested because I'm not a city dog. I'm actually a person. We understand the needs of dogs and owners living in an urban environment. Go far beyond sit down, stay and heal. Okay, now you're talking about yourselves instead of me. Now, if I am a dog owner in a city environment, you are kind of talking about me by saying that you understand me. So that's not bad. A city dog needs to know a whole other set of tricks, like how to behave on a tube, how to relax in a cafe, how to meet friends, and how your expensive new shoes are not for chewing. City living demands city training. Okay, so the copy is not terrible. It's fairly conversational. It does talk about the thing that I'm most likely interested in as an ideal prospect. That's good. And it follows with a good subhead: city living demands city training. So it's setting apart the value proposition of the website. At least implicitly it is. I'm assuming the website is about city training for dogs. However, there are then no calls to action. These actually are calls to action, I assume, but they're not couched as such. They're not presented as calls to action. And because there are 4 of them, I've got too many choices, and I don't actually even see them as calls to action because of the way that they're designed. So let's get face to snout. If that was presented in an orange button, maybe with an arrow or something, then I would be like, oh, okay, I see. I still don't know exactly what it means, but I assume it's something to do with contacting. But the way that it's presented here is just, well, it looks like a bunch of covers for something, maybe. I literally, when I look at it the first time, I think, I don't know what that is. My eye just skips right over it. So as calls to action go, they're incredibly poor. So offers is really bad here. However, I think this site probably does the best out of all the ones that I've had a look at. First reaction is good. Orientation is pretty poor. Desirability is good if you actually start reading. But offers are poor again. However, at least they are there. Alright, that's all I'm going to show you today. I don't want to overload you, and this could get boring if I go on too long. My point is to show you that professionally designed websites don't necessarily get the job done. If these top-class sites need so much improvement, how does yours compare? Now, you may not have a professionally designed website, and in fact, that may be an advantage to you if you've thought about these sorts of questions beforehand and have simply had someone in your office, or maybe you yourself, put your site together thinking about these kinds of questions. However, my guess is that you probably didn't think about these questions when you designed your site. So if it's not professionally designed, then it's probably even worse off than if it has been. How your site can do better than these ones, these professionally designed but ineffective websites? Well, first of all, you can obviously watch the other 21 videos that I'll be releasing here, and I guarantee you'll get good use out of them. But if you really want to kick things into gear and start turning more visitors into customers, the way to do it is with Attention Thievery 101 full course content. And I guarantee that you will find extreme value in this course. If you don't think that it was worth the price, if at any point in your life you don't think that it was worth the price, you may simply email me and ask for a full refund, and I will give it to you, no questions asked. So click on the orange button now to order it. I will see you in the next video, which will be in a couple of days. Until then, I am Non.